Stanley Kubrick was born on July 26, 1928. He was the first of two children of Jack Kubrick and his wife Sadie Kubrick. At Stanley's birth, the Kubricks lived in an apartment in the Bronx. Although his parents had been married in a Jewish ceremony, Kubrick did not have a religious upbringing and would later profess an atheistic view of the universe. By the district standards of the West Bronx, the family was fairly wealthy, his father earning a good income as a doctor. Soon after his sister's birth, Kubrick began school. Although his IQ was discovered to be above average, his attendance was poor and he missed as many days as he attended. When Kubrick was 12, his father Jack taught him chess. The game remained a lifelong interest of Kubrick's, appearing in many scenes of his films. Kubrick himself explained that chess helped him develop patience and discipline in making decisions.
Anyone who has ever been privileged to direct a film also knows that although it can be like trying to write War and Peace in a bumper car in an amusement park, when you finally get it right, there are not many joys in life that can equal the feeling.
At the age of 13, Kubrick's father bought him a Graflex camera, triggering a fascination with still photography. Kubrick attended William Howard Taft High School. Though he joined the school's photographic club, which permitted him to photograph the school's events in their magazine, he was a mediocre student. Introverted and shy, Kubrick had a low attendance record and often skipped school to watch double feature films. He graduated in 1945, but his poor grades, combined with the demand for college admissions from soldiers returning from the Second World War, eliminated hope of higher education. Later in life, Kubrick spoke disdainfully of his education and of contemporary American schooling as a whole, maintaining that schools were ineffective in stimulating critical thinking and student interest. His father was disappointed in his son's failure to achieve excellence in school, of which he felt Stanley was fully capable. Eventually, he sold a photographic series to Look magazine, having taken a photo to Helen O'Brien, head of the photographic department, who purchased it without hesitation. In 1946, he became an apprentice photographer for Look and later a full-time staff photographer. Kubrick quickly became known, however, for his storytelling in photographs. Friends began to notice that Kubrick had become obsessed with the art of filmmaking. One friend, David Vaughan, observed that Kubrick would scrutinise the film at the cinema when it was silent and would go back to reading his paper when people started talking. Kubrick shared a love of film with his school friend Alexander Singer, who after graduating from high school had the intention of directing a film version of Homer's The Iliad. Through Singer, who worked in the offices of the newsreel production company The March of Time, Kubrick learned that it could cost $40,000 to make a proper short film, money he could not afford. However, he had $1,500 in savings and managed to produce a few short documentaries. Kubrick decided to make a short film documentary about a boxer, Walter Cartier, whom he had photographed and written about for Look magazine a year earlier. He rented a camera and produced a 16-minute black and white documentary, Day of the Fight. Kubrick found the money independently to finance it. According to Paul Duncan, the film was remarkably accomplished for a first film and was notable for using the reverse tracking shot to film a scene in which the brothers walked towards the camera, a device later to become one of Kubrick's characteristic camera movements. Kubrick described his first effort at filmmaking as having been valuable, since he believed himself to have been forced to do most of the work, and he later declared that the best education in film is to make one. Inspired by this early success, Kubrick quit his job at Look and visited professional filmmakers in New York City, asking many detailed questions about the technical aspects of filmmaking. He stated he was given the confidence during this period to become a filmmaker because of the number of bad films he had seen, remarking, "I don't know a goddamn thing about movies, but I know I can make a better film than that." He began making 1951's Flying Padre, a film which documents Reverend Fred Stadmuller, who travels some 4,000 miles to visit his 11 churches. During the course of the film, the priest performs a burial service, confronts a boy bullying a girl, and makes an emergency flight to aid a sick mother and baby into an ambulance. Several of the views from and of the plane in Flying Padre are later echoed in 2001, A Space Odyssey, with the footage of the spacecraft. Flying Padre was followed by The Seafarers in 1953, Kubrick's first colour film, which was shot for the Seafarers International Union in June 1953. For the cafeteria scene in the film, Kubrick chose a long, sideways shooting dolly shot to establish the life of the seafarers community. This shot is an early demonstration of a technique which would become a signature of his. Day of the Fight, Flying Padre, and The Seafarers constitute Kubrick's only surviving documentary works, although some historians believe he made others. After raising $1,000 showing his short films to friends and family, Kubrick found the finances to begin making his first feature film, Fear and Desire, in 1953. Kubrick's uncle, Martin Pavila, a Los Angeles businessman, invested a further $9,000 on condition that he be credited as executive producer of the film. Kubrick assembled several actors and a small crew totaling 14 people, 5 actors, 5 crewmen, and 4 Mexicans to help transport the equipment, and flew to the San Gabriel Mountains in California for a 5-week low-budget shoot. Fear and Desire is a fictional allegory about a team of soldiers who survive a plane crash and are caught behind enemy lines in a war. Fear and Desire garnered several positive reviews upon release, but was nonetheless a commercial failure. Kubrick himself later expressed embarrassment with Fear and Desire, and attempted over the years to keep prints of the film out of circulation. Following Fear and Desire, Kubrick began working on ideas for a new boxing film. 1955 Killer's Kiss is a 67-minute film noir about a young heavyweight boxer's involvement with a woman being abused by her criminal boss. Like Fear and Desire, it was privately funded by Kubrick's family and friends. Kubrick began shooting footage in Times Square and frequently experimented with cinematography and considering the use of unconventional angles and imagery during filming. He initially chose to record the sound on location, but encountered difficulties with shadows from the microphone booms, restricting camera movement. His decision to drop the sound in favour of imagery was a costly one. After 14 weeks shooting the picture, he spent some 7 months and $35,000 working on the sound. Martin Scorsese has cited Kubrick's innovative shooting angles and atmospheric shots in Killer's Kiss as an influence on his film Raging Bull. Actress Irene Kane, the star of the film, observed, "Stanley's a fascinating character. He thinks movies should move, with a minimum of dialogue, and he's all for sex and sadism." Killer's Kiss met with limited commercial success and made very little money in comparison with its production budget of $75,000. Although critics have praised the film's camera work, its acting and story are generally considered mediocre. While playing chess in Washington Square, Kubrick met producer James B. Harris, who considered Kubrick to be the most intelligent and most creative person I have ever come in contact with, and the two formed the Harris-Kubrick Pictures Corporation in 1955. Harris purchased the rights to Lionel White's novel Clean Break for $10,000, and Kubrick wrote the script, but upon Kubrick's suggestion, they hired film noir novelist Jim Thompson to write the dialogue for the film, which later became 1956's The Killing, about a meticulously planned racetrack robbery gone wrong. The film starred Sterling Hayden, with whom Kubrick had been impressed in the 1950s The Asphalt Jungle. The union in Hollywood stated that Kubrick would not be permitted to be both the director and the cinematographer of the movie, so veteran cinematographer Lucien Ballard was hired for the shooting. He clashed with Ballard, and on one occasion, Kubrick threatened to fire Ballard following a camera dispute, despite being only 27 years old at the time and almost 20 years Ballard's junior. Hayden recalled that Kubrick was cold and detached, very mechanical, always confident. I've worked with few directors who are that good. The Killing failed to secure a proper release across the United States. The film made little money and was promoted only at the last minute as a second feature to the Western movie Bandido. Several contemporary critics lauded the film, however, with a reviewer for Time comparing its camera work to that of Orson Welles. Today, critics generally consider The Killing to be among the best films of Kubrick's early career. Its non-linear narrative and clinical execution also had a major influence on later directors of crime films, including Quentin Tarantino. Dor Sherry of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer was highly impressed as well and offered Kubrick and Harris $75,000 to write, direct and produce a film which ultimately became 1957's Paths of Glory. Paths of Glory, set during World War I, is based on Humphrey Cobb's 1935 anti-war novel. Kubrick and Harris managed to interest Kirk Douglas in playing Colonel Dax. The film shot in Munich from January 1957 and follows a French army unit ordered on an impossible mission. This results with a war trial of Colonel Dax and his men for misconduct. For the battle scene, Kubrick meticulously lined up 6 cameras, one after the other, along the boundary of no man's land, with each camera capturing a specific field and numbered, and gave each of the hundreds of extras a number for the zone in which they would die. Paths of Glory became Kubrick's first significant commercial success and established him as an up-and-coming young filmmaker. Critics praised the film's unsentimental, spare and unvarnished combat scenes and its raw, black-and-white cinematography. Despite the praise, the Christmas release date was criticised, and the subject was a controversial one in Europe. The film was banned in France until 1974 for its unflattering depiction of the French military. During the production of Paths of Glory in Munich in early 1957, Kubrick met and romanced the German actress Christiane Harlan, who played a small though memorable role in the film. Kubrick married Harlan in 1958, and the couple remained together 40 years until his death in 1999. Besides his stepdaughter, they had 2 daughters together, Anya Renata and Vivian Vanessa. Marlon Brando contacted Kubrick, asking him to direct a film adaptation of the Charles Needham Western novel, The Authentic Death of Hendry Jones. Brando was highly impressed with the director, remarking that Stanley is unusually perceptive and delicately attuned to people. He has an adroit intellect and is a creative thinker, not a repeater, not a fact-gatherer. He digests what he learns and brings to a new project an original point of view and a reserved passion. The two worked on the script for 6 months before disputes broke out over the project, and in the end, Kubrick distanced himself from what would become One-Eyed Jacks. In February 1959, Kubrick received a phone call from Kirk Douglas asking him to direct Spartacus, based on the true life story of the historical figure Spartacus and the events of the Third Servile War. Douglas had acquired the rights to the novel by Howard Fast, and blacklisted screenwriter Dalton Trumbo wrote the script. It was produced by Douglas, who also starred as rebellious slave Spartacus, and cast Laurence Olivier as his foe, the Roman general and politician Marcus Crassus. Douglas hired Kubrick for a reported fee of $150,000 to take over direction soon after he fired director Anthony Mann. Kubrick had, at 31, already directed 4 feature films, and this became his largest by far, with a cast of over 10,000 and a large budget of $6 million. At the time, this was the most expensive film ever made in America, and Kubrick had become the youngest director in Hollywood history to helm an epic. It was the first time that Kubrick filmed using an anamorphic 35mm horizontal Super Technorama process to achieve ultra-high definition, which allowed him to capture large panoramic scenes, including one with 8,000 trained soldiers from Spain representing the Roman army. Disputes broke out during the filming. Kubrick complained about not having full creative control over the artistic aspects, insisting on improvising extensively during the production. Kubrick and Douglas were also at odds over the script, with Kubrick angering Douglas when he cut all but 2 of his lines from the opening 30 minutes. Despite the on-set troubles, Spartacus was a critical and commercial success, earning $14.6 million at the box office. The film established Kubrick as a major director, receiving 6 Academy Award nominations and winning 4. It ultimately convinced him that if so much could be made of such a problematic production, he could achieve anything.